Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the mega brain reality, the true future of AI. We constantly hear about the absolutely limitless potential of artificial intelligence, right? But what actually happens when all that hype crashes into the hard, uncompromising physical and economic walls of reality? Well, those constraints point us directly toward an exclusive, hyper-expensive future centered around something called the mega brain. So we're going to strip away the hype and look at where this is actually headed. Will you soon have a $50 a month personal AI genius? Let's talk about this hugely popular, kind of utopian belief right now. There's this massive assumption that once superintelligence gets here, it's just going to be rolled out as a basic consumer subscription. You pay your $50 and boom, you literally have a digital Einstein in your pocket running your life. It's a highly comforting thought, isn't it? Pure genius, democratized for everyone. It's not going to happen. As our source material bluntly puts it, it's just not going to happen. And today we're going to look exactly at why. The actual future of artificial intelligence is fundamentally baked into some incredibly severe physical limits and immense economic pressures. The phase we're in right now, where companies are practically giving this stuff away to get us hooked, that's strictly temporary. Just look at the recent AI trajectories. We've got major shakeups, like the former chief AI scientist at Meta quitting to found his own company over strategy disagreements. Then, you have Anthropic straight up blocking non-US access to its newest model. And, even more intensely, we have reports of AI systems being utilized in military missile launches. These aren't just tech updates. They show us that AI is rapidly moving away from being a fun consumer novelty and is becoming deeply tied to intense geopolitical maneuvering.
So here's the harsh reality. Your genius assistant is currently unavailable because billionaires are using it to optimize tax avoidance. The future isn't a cheap super assistant for everyone. Instead, it's basically a velvet rope dictated by immense wealth. Imagine wanting to ask your AI a question, only to find the compute power is entirely tied up by multinational corporations running massive economic strategies. These systems are so wildly expensive, they will absolutely prioritize the highest bidder, not us.
Part 1. The New Industrial Revolution, a historical parallel.
Take a look at 18th century Great Britain versus the modern AI race. In the 18th century, global dominance was driven by ships, armies, and colonialism. The first nations to industrialize didn't just get a little richer, they held immense power over the entire globe. Well, the exact same thing is happening right now. But instead of ships, global dominance is driven by software, hardware, and raw compute power. Whoever gets to superintelligence first won't just have a cool product. They will dominate economically and militarily. They will literally rule the world.
Part 2. AI's physical limits. Why the current models won't scale to everyone.
Let's look at the shortcomings of current large language models. We are facing massive energy and hardware bottlenecks. Training these things requires a staggering amount of chips and power. But beyond the physical toll, they lack continuous learning. You basically have to train them, roll out an update, and then start completely over. They also suffer from catastrophic forgetting, literally overriding their own knowledge, and basically unfixable safety problems like prompt injection. You simply can't just throw more money at these specific software limitations and expect a magical fix.
So, how do we fix this? The biological solution. We borrow from the human brain via specialization, attention, and memory. Think about your own brain for a second. As our source humorously points out, one part of your brain might do physics, another does your taxes, and the rest is basically just there to remember the cheese. The trend in AI is doing exactly this, using task-dedicated subsections in distinct memory banks to specialize, rather than forcing one massive web to try and do everything at once. Part 3. The evolutionary path. Changing the basic architecture of AI. Here are the steps of this evolutionary path. Step 1. We start with the energy-hungry current large language models. Step 2. To save energy, we move to interwoven hardware and software, like neuromorphic chips. Step 3. Then we get world models, which are AIs learning causal relations in artificial environments, kind of like human biological evolution. And all of this inevitably leads us to Step 4, the mega brain.
Part 4. Rise of the mega brain, the logical endpoint of AI development.
So what exactly is a mega brain? By definition, it's a continuously running, continuously learning central AI model that is deeply interwoven with its physical hardware, making it exceptionally difficult to copy. Because the software is so intricately tied to custom-built hardware just to save energy, it's not just some lines of code you can easily download onto a flash drive. Copying it would be insanely difficult and completely inefficient. It's going to be a massive, centralized, physically rooted entity. Let's compare the megabrain versus child models. The megabrain is centralized, infinitely complex, incredibly expensive, and has highly restricted access. You, the average citizen, will probably never interact with it directly. What you will get are the child models. These are simplified, routine-focused, and deployed to do everyday work and, frankly, replace jobs. Basically, the central superbrain creates smaller, heavily restricted brains to handle all the everyday drudgery.
Part 5. The cost of superintelligence. The socioeconomic reality.
Let's look at the economics here. Intelligence is fundamentally becoming a luxury good. The expense to build a superbrain is going to be extraordinary. Ownership will be highly restricted to just a few massive governments or companies. And access, you won't just need massive wealth. You might literally need a top-level security clearance just to ask it certain questions. It's a bold new world where incredible capabilities are available only to the elite, a dynamic otherwise known as history repeating itself.
This means the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and some will retreat to low-tech, AI-free communities. The societal divide is gonna become absolute. The centralization of all this intellectual power guarantees that those at the top will use the mega brain to infinitely compound their advantages. In fact, this divide will likely become so stark that a fraction of people will simply refuse to accept it, intentionally retreating into completely AI-free communities just to maintain their human autonomy.
Will we end up living in a world governed by new technologies, drugs, and weapons that we simply can't understand? I want to leave you with that final, chilling question. If a tiny few rule the many, using an intelligence far beyond our own, we'll increasingly live in a world created by an entity we can't even comprehend. As we hurtle toward this era of the megabrain, relying on artificial intelligence might not be what saves us. Cultivating our own, deeply human understanding may actually end up being our final and most vital skill. Thank you for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning and stay curious.